The alien prison ship was silent, except for the sound of chains dragging on the cold floor. The air was heavy, smelling of rust, oil, and old blood. A young woman named Hyun walked barefoot, her wrists locked tightly in heavy iron cuffs. Two massive alien guards walked on each side, their glowing eyes fixed on her, as if she were prey. Hyun's steps were slow, but her back was straight. Her thin figure looked fragile, her pale skin marked with bruises from previous beatings. Yet she made no sound. She didn't cry or ask for mercy. Her black hair covered part of her face, but her dark, calm eyes watched everything. The guards whispered in their language, laughing. They thought she would not survive where she was going. Ahead of them was a huge steel door, scratched and dented, as if something powerful had tried to break out. Dried blood stained the edges. One guard pushed her hard, so she fell to her knees. He leaned down close, his sharp teeth showing as he spoke in broken human words. "You die. Fast," he hissed. Hyun slowly lifted her head and looked into his eyes. She didn't blink, she didn't answer. The guard hesitated for a moment, confused by her cold stare. Then he spat on the ground and pulled her up roughly by the chains. The door opened with a loud hiss, revealing darkness inside. The guards threw her into the huge cage and locked the door behind her. The sound of the heavy lock echoed down the corridor. Inside, it was pitch black at first. Then came the smell rot, wet fur, and raw meat. Something growled low and deep. Shadows moved all around her. Pairs of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, one after another. There were monsters in the cage. Big ones. The largest stepped into the dim light. It was a reptile-like beast with thick scales and jagged teeth. Behind it were others, a wolf-like creature with 4 glowing eyes, something tall and insect-like with sharp legs, and others crawling or slithering like nightmares. The reptile beast roared so loudly the metal bars shook. The other monsters growled, surrounding Hyun slowly. The guards outside started laughing. They thought the monsters would tear her apart. This was the reason they had thrown her here. She was supposed to be eaten alive. The reptile beast attacked first. It lunged forward with its huge claws, aiming at her head. Hyun didn't move. She stood still until the very last second. Then her body snapped into action. She stepped aside, grabbed the beast's thick jaw with both hands, and twisted hard. There was a loud crack. The monster's body dropped to the floor, its neck broken. The laughter outside stopped. The other monsters froze, their glowing eyes turned toward her. She stood in the center of the cage, blood dripping from her hands. Her chains rattled as she shifted her weight and looked at each of them slowly. One wolf-like creature tried to attack anyway. Charging forward, Hyun moved faster. She ducked low, drove her fist into its chest with such force that its body collapsed to the ground, lifeless. The monsters backed away now. They no longer looked hungry. They looked afraid. Outside, the alien guards stared at each other. This wasn't possible. No human could fight like this. Inside the cage, Hyun stood tall, her chains still dragging behind her. Her black eyes were cold and sharp as she faced the circle of monsters. For the first time, none of them dared to come closer. They understood. The human was the scariest one in the cage. The cage was silent except for the sound of breathing. Dozens of glowing eyes stared at Hyun as she stood over the 2 dead monsters. Her chains were still on, blood dripping from her knuckles, but her calm gaze made even the largest beasts step back. No one moved. Then a low growl came from the far corner. A huge beast shaped like a black lion, with bone spikes along its back, stepped forward. It was twice the size of the reptile she had just killed. Its mouth opened, showing rows of curved teeth. Hyun didn't back away. She raised her chin and looked at it as if daring it to attack. The lion beast roared and lunged. Its weight shook the ground, its claws raised high. Hyun moved at the last possible moment, dodging under its body. Her chain wrapped around its throat as she spun behind it. She pulled hard, using the monster's own momentum against it. The chain bit into its neck, cutting deep. The beast thrashed and clawed at her, but she didn't let go. She pulled tighter and tighter until its body stopped moving. With one final jerk, the beast collapsed. Dead. Hyun dropped the chain and looked at the rest of the monsters. Blood soaked her clothes now, but her breathing was steady. The monsters stepped back. She didn't speak their language, but her message was clear. Come closer, and you will die. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, a creature shaped like a massive insect hissed and tried to crawl away into the shadows. Hyun's eyes followed it. She moved so quickly the other monsters barely saw her. In 2 steps, she was behind it. Her hand grabbed the back of its head, and slammed it hard against the metal floor. The insect screeched as its skull cracked. She stood over it, her voice low and cold for the first time. "No one leaves," she said. The other monsters froze. They understood her tone, even if they didn't understand her words. The guards outside whispered nervously as they watched through the bars. "What is she doing?" one of them asked. "She is controlling them," another replied. Inside, Hao-Yun turned back to the circle of monsters. She raised her hands slowly, pointing at the bodies on the floor, then at the group. "Together," she said, "or die." One of the smaller creatures, a lizard-like monster with red scales, made a clicking noise as if arguing. Hao-Yun didn't hesitate. She grabbed the lizard by the tail, lifted it with impossible strength, and slammed it into the bars of the cage. Its body went limp instantly. She dropped it without emotion. "Together," she repeated. The monsters lowered their heads. One by one, they stepped closer to her, not to attack but to submit. The guards could not believe what they were seeing. The deadliest prisoners in the galaxy were bowing to a single human girl. Hao-Yun slowly walked through the group, her chains dragging behind her. None of the monsters moved. They watched her silently, waiting for her command. For the first time, she allowed herself a small breath of relief. She now had control, but she also knew the guards would not let this continue. She could see their eyes through the bars. They were already afraid of her. Hao-Yun looked up at the ceiling. She could hear the hum of the prison ship's engines. She could feel the vibrations through the floor. She was in the heart of enemy territory, with only one chance to escape. She turned back to the monsters, her voice sharp like a blade. "Be ready," she whispered. The guards outside did not know it yet, but the human girl was planning something far worse than survival. The guards outside the cage still whispered about what they had seen. Hao-Yun had killed the strongest monsters and made the others kneel. They did not dare to open the cage again, but they didn't know that the danger had already begun. Inside, Hao-Yun crouched on the floor, her chains resting at her side. Around her, the monsters stood silent and ready, waiting for her command. She could see the weakness in the cage door. She could see the pattern in the guards' patrols. She knew the ship now, the sounds, the shadows, the right moment to strike. She looked up at the beasts and whispered. Now the largest creature, the black lion beast, slammed its body against the cage door. Metal screeched. The guards jumped in alarm. Before they could react, another monster joined in, and the door cracked open. "Stop them," one of the guards shouted. But it was too late. The door exploded off its hinges, and Hao-Yun burst out with her army of monsters. The first guard barely had time to raise his weapon before Hao-Yun was on him. She grabbed his arm, twisted it until it snapped, and drove his own blade into his chest. The monsters followed behind her, tearing into the other guards. Claws ripped through armor. Teeth crushed bones. Blood sprayed across the walls. Hao-Yun grabbed a fallen weapon and turned it on the control panel, blasting it open. Sparks flew as she ripped out the wires. She knew she had to move fast. Alarms were already blaring through the ship. They reached a security checkpoint, where more alien soldiers waited with heavy guns. The first monster charged, and was cut down instantly by a storm of bullets. Hao-Yun dove forward, using the fallen body as cover. She reached the nearest soldier, broke his neck, and took his weapon. "Move," she shouted. The monsters surged forward, ignoring the gunfire. They were wild and powerful, but now they were organized. They killed everything in their path as Hao-Yun led them deeper into the ship. They reached the engine deck, where the hum of power was deafening. There, they found a terrified alien technician crouching behind a console. He was smaller than the others, with pale gray skin and wide eyes. Hao-Yun grabbed him by the collar and lifted him off the ground. "Codes," she said coldly. I don't know." The alien stammered. Hao-Yun didn't blink. She pressed the edge of a stolen blade to his throat. "Codes," she repeated. The alien's hands shook as he typed into the console. "Here, please, don't kill me." The doors opened. Hao-Yun dropped him, turning back to her monsters. She had no time for mercy. They stormed the command center next. The ship's commander, a hulking alien warlord covered in scars, stood waiting. With his elite soldiers, he pointed at her and roared, "Human, you will die here." Hao-Yun walked forward slowly, her eyes locked on him. "No," she said. "You will." The commander charged with a massive weapon. Hao-Yun sidestepped his swing and drove her stolen blade deep into his chest. The commander staggered back, stunned, as she twisted the blade and pulled it out. He fell to his knees, gasping. "What are you?" Hao-Yun leaned close. "Human," she whispered. Then she cut his throat. The other soldiers tried to fight, but the monsters were already upon them. The battle was over in seconds. Hyun stepped over the dead and walked to the command console. Her hands hovered over the controls for the first time. The prison ship was hers. She turned to the monsters, her voice sharp and commanding. "Set course," she ordered. "We're going home." The prison ship cut through the darkness of space like a silent predator. Its engines glowed faintly as it approached a small human colony world. Hyun stood on the command deck, her hands behind her back, her black eyes fixed on the blue and green planet ahead. The monsters stood behind her in perfect silence. They no longer looked wild. They were calm, disciplined, and waiting for her orders. She had turned the deadliest creatures in the galaxy into soldiers. The colony's defense forces spotted the massive alien ship and sent out a warning. "Unknown vessel, state your identity," crackled the voice over the radio. "You are approaching restricted airspace." Hyun pressed the transmitter button. "This is Hyun," she said, her voice cold and steady. "I am human. I am coming home." The defenders were silent for a long moment. Then the alarm went up. Fighters scrambled, guns locked on the alien ship. Hyun didn't change course. She knew how this would look to them, a captured alien warship with hundreds of monsters on board. But she would not stop. The alien technician Rinkyu, the only one left alive from the crew, looked at her nervously. "They will fire on us," he said quietly. Hyun's gaze didn't move from the planet. "No," she replied. "They will listen." The human colony governor stood waiting at the landing platform when the massive ship touched down. Soldiers surrounded the area, their weapons trembling in their hands as the ship's doors opened. The first thing they saw was the monsters. Huge, terrifying, covered in scars and alien blood. The soldiers raised their guns, ready to fire. Then, Hyun stepped forward. She walked down the ramp slowly, her hands raised to show she was unarmed. Her pale face was streaked with dried blood, her chains still hanging from her wrists. Behind her, the monsters stayed still, waiting. The soldiers hesitated. Hyun stopped a few meters from the governor. "I am not your enemy," she said simply. "I have brought you an army." The governor's face was pale. "Those things," he whispered. "They follow me," Hyun said. "They fight for me. And now they will fight for us." The governor looked around at his soldiers. None of them moved. None of them wanted to test her. Finally, he nodded. Double quotes, "Very well," he said quietly. "You will help us." From that day forward, everything changed. When alien fleets attacked the colony, they didn't find frightened humans. They found Hyun. They found her monsters. Battles that once would have been hopeless ended in minutes. Entire fleets vanished. Whole planets surrendered at the sound of her name. The galaxy began to whisper about the human girl who had tamed the monsters. One alien commander, cornered in his warship, begged her for mercy. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you like this? Why do you fight with such rage?" Hyun stepped forward, her black eyes unreadable. "Because they locked me in a cage," she said quietly. "And I survived." The commander never spoke again. Hyun became more than just a soldier. She was a weapon, a symbol, and a legend. The monsters who once would have killed humans on sight now followed her without question. She taught them discipline, and in return, they gave her loyalty. But she never forgot the cage. She never forgot the guards who laughed at her, thinking she was prey. Now, the galaxy understood the truth. The scariest creature in the cage had always been human.